Around 3:50, the buzzer went off, and I thought the police had arrived, but it was just another guest. The man turned his head and followed that guest's every step across the lobby, eyes tracking him until he disappeared upstairs. A few minutes later, the man vanished again. I checked the cameras and saw him standing outside one of the guest rooms, just staring at the door. That's when I called 911 for real. I told them he was outside a guest's room and might be trying to break in. They said officers were on their way. I kept watching the feed. He stood there for a few minutes, then casually walked back to the lobby. When he returned, he leaned over the front desk, looked me dead in the eye, and asked in a low, almost whispering voice if there was any food. I pointed toward the vending machines, and he gave this faint, unsettling smile before walking away again. I sat there, staring at the clock, counting every second until I saw flashing blue and red lights outside. Around 4:10, 2 officers came in. I pointed toward the man, who was sitting calmly on the lounge couch like nothing had happened. They talked to him for a few minutes, then walked him out. One of the officers told me afterward that the man wasn't a guest at all, the card he used was stolen, and he had no reservation, no bags, nothing. He just pretended to check in to get inside the building. They charged him with trespassing and possession of a stolen card. After they left, I just sat there shaking until my shift ended. Every time I looked at the monitors, I expected to see him again. What really haunted me was realizing that he had been in the hotel for hours, wandering the halls, watching me, standing outside guest rooms, and he was never supposed to be there. I don't know what he wanted, but I know it wasn't good. It was the scariest night of my life. I thought it was a glitch, so I double-checked the system, but there was no record of his check-in. No name, no transaction, nothing. Even the card payment hadn't processed. My confusion turned to unease as I realized he wasn't in the system at all. I called room 214, no answer. The keycard logs showed no entry either. That's when I looked over, and there he was, still sitting in the same spot, staring at the TV. My chest got tight as it sank in. He had never gone to the room. I debated calling someone but hesitated, thinking it might just be a system error. After another 15 minutes, I decided to ask him if everything was all right. When I walked over, he turned his head slowly, expressionless, and said he couldn't sleep before turning back toward the blank TV. I went back to my desk shaking. A little after 2, I noticed he was gone. My stomach dropped as I scanned the lobby and found him standing halfway down the hall near the bathrooms, half hidden in the dark. I pretended to work while keeping him in my sight until he eventually walked back to the lounge and sat down again like nothing happened. I called my manager and explained the situation. She sounded half asleep and told me to just keep an eye on him and call the police if things escalated. But it already felt beyond that. I checked the cameras and saw him wandering around the hallways, the stairwell, standing for minutes at a time in strange places, just watching. Every time I looked away and back, he'd be somewhere else. By 3:30, I'd had enough and called the non-emergency police line. They said they'd send someone, and while I was waiting, I noticed he had moved closer, standing about 15 feet from the desk, just watching me, motionless. I pretended to type, but my heart was racing. I used to work the night shift at a small hotel, and this happened about a year ago, but I still think about it constantly because it genuinely terrified me. I have no idea what that man's plan was or what he wanted, but the thought of how long he was there without me realizing he wasn't even supposed to be makes me feel sick every time I remember it. The hotel was tiny, just 3 floors and around 40 rooms. It wasn't a busy place, usually no more than a dozen guests during the week. My shift ran from 10 at night to 6 in the morning, and most nights were quiet and uneventful, which I didn't mind. I'd sit behind the front desk, fill out paperwork, check the security feeds, or scroll through YouTube if things were slow. The lobby was small, just a front desk, a few couches, a TV, and some vending machines in the corner. Behind the desk was a small office with a computer, a chair, and a window looking out into the lobby. After midnight, the front doors locked automatically, and anyone arriving late had to buzz in so I could let them through. Most nights, nothing ever happened after 12, except for the occasional late check-in. But one night, around 11, a man buzzed in, and everything about that moment still makes my stomach twist when I think about it. He looked to be in his mid-40s, tall, a little thin, wearing jeans, a baseball cap, and carrying a backpack. He asked for a room, I gave him the rate, he handed me a card, and it went through. I assigned him room 214 and gave him the key. He stared at me a little too long before leaving, his eyes fixed on me with a blank expression that lasted a few seconds too many before he turned and walked to the elevator. Nothing about him screamed danger, but something about him stuck in my head. I went back to my desk, thinking nothing of it, until around midnight when I looked up and saw him again, sitting quietly on one of the lobby couches. The TV was off, and he wasn't on his phone or reading, he was just sitting there, staring straight ahead. I figured maybe he couldn't sleep, so I ignored it at first, but after half an hour, I realized he hadn't moved. He just sat there, still as a statue, eyes fixed on the blank screen. When I got up to grab a drink from the vending machine, I could feel his gaze follow me across the room until I sat down again. It gave me this deep, crawling feeling in my stomach that something was off. Around 1 in the morning, I started checking the reservation system just to pass time, and that's when I noticed something strange. Room 214 showed up as vacant. My name is Meredith. I'm 24 and I work the night shift at a tiny gas station off County Road 11, the kind of place most people pass without noticing unless they're lost or desperate for fuel. I took the job because it was quiet, predictable, and simple, or at least it used to be. It began on a Thursday night around 1 in the morning. The air outside was thick and damp, and the steady hum of the overhead lights had been grating on my nerves all shift. I was just about to microwave a cinnamon roll I didn't even want when the door chimed. A man walked in, mid-40s, maybe older. He wore a green coat, his hair was unkempt, and his lips were cracked like he hadn't smiled in years. He didn't go for coffee or snacks like most customers, instead, he stood by the counter, watching me with this strange look of recognition. "Hi," I said, forcing a smile. He asked, "You always work this late?" I hesitated. Yeah, most nights." He smiled faintly. "I thought so. I've passed through a few times. Seems like it's always you." That made my stomach tighten, though I tried not to show it. "Small town," I replied, but he didn't leave. "Meredith, right?" I froze, I wasn't wearing a name tag. Before I could ask how he knew, he gestured to the whiteboard behind me where I'd written * cinnamon coffee is back. * you've got nice handwriting, he said. Most people dot their I's with circles. You use slashes. It's very intentional. I didn't respond. He stood there silently for another moment, studying me like he was memorizing every reaction. Then he finally nodded and said, "I'm Paul. Just curious, that's all," before walking back out into the fog. After that, he started showing up occasionally, not every night, not enough to scream stalker, but often enough that I stopped pretending it was coincidence. Sometimes he came inside, other times he just sat in his car at the edge of the lot with his headlights off. One night, I tried ignoring him. He came in, bought a bottle of water, and lingered like always. "You're quieter tonight," he said. "Long shift," I muttered. He glanced around the store, eyes sweeping every corner. "It must get lonely out here," he said casually. "Just you, no one for miles." I forced a small laugh. "I'm fine." He leaned closer to the counter. "You ever get scared? Being a woman alone all night?" His tone wasn't threatening, it was calm, curious, almost analytical. That somehow made it worse. I stepped back and asked, "Do you need anything else?" He tilted his head. "You always keep the back room door locked." "Smart. You check it every night around 2, don't you? My stomach turned cold. I didn't answer. I'll let you get back to it, he said softly, like he'd done nothing wrong, and walked out again. After that, I started walking to my car with my keys between my fingers. I kept a tire iron under the counter, changed the curtains in my apartment, and even locked the bathroom door while showering. He didn't come every night, sometimes a week passed, but that only made it worse. I never knew when he'd reappear. Then one night, I came back from a 10-minute break and found a Polaroid on the counter. It was me, refilling the windshield washer bin behind the station, taken that night, close up. No note, but the slashed dot over the I in windshield was circled in red. The next time he came in, I told him to leave or I'd call the police. Paul just nodded. I get it. I've been too forward. You've been following me, I said, my voice shaking. He didn't deny it. I just think you're someone who's used to being misunderstood. I thought maybe you'd appreciate someone who notices. That's not noticing, I snapped. That's obsession. He didn't flinch. Would it be easier if I came in smiling, bought a soda, and talked about sports? Pretended I didn't notice your shoes are a half size too big, or that your left eyelid twitches when you're tired? I started dialing 911 right there. He didn't stop me, just stood quietly until the police arrived. They found a notebook in his car filled with dates, times, and details about my life, my shifts, my routines, my groceries. One page was just my name, written over and over in tighter loops until it turned to scribbles. He kept saying the same thing, I just notice things. I'm just a curious guy. The restraining order went through that week. I quit the night shift, transferred to another town 2 hours away, but the fear didn't leave with him. Now, whenever headlights follow me too long on a dark road, I feel the back of my neck prickle. And sometimes, I still think about the way he said my name, like he'd practiced it, like he already knew how it would sound in his mouth. My name's Daniel. I'm 29, and I work the overnight shift at a small, family-run motel out in the middle of nowhere. It's not part of any chain, just a 2-story building with maybe 25 rooms total. My shift runs from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and most nights are uneventful. Maybe a couple of travelers check in after midnight, but otherwise, it's dead quiet. That's exactly why I took the job. I'm not big on social interaction, so spending 8 hours alone in an empty building suits me just fine. The motel's setup is simple, a front office with a desk, a few chairs, a coffee machine, and a rack of local brochures. Behind that, there's a short hallway leading to a back office that doubles as a break room. It's got another desk, a couch, a mini fridge, and a wall-mounted TV. A small speaker back there dings whenever someone rings the front desk bell. Usually, I hang out in the back, watch something on my laptop, or nap on the couch until the bell rings, then I head to the front. After working here long enough, I know the usual sounds by heart, the heater's soft ticking, the old pipes creaking, and the door buzzer when a guest uses their keycard after hours. Those are normal. But when you're alone all night, even normal things can start to sound wrong. And sometimes, they are. This happened one Tuesday night in the fall. It was cold, maybe in the 40s, and the parking lot only had a few cars belonging to guests. Around 2 a.m., I heard the bell. I got up from the couch, walked into the lobby, and no one was there. The place was empty. I looked through the glass doors, but the road was completely dark. No headlights, no movement. I thought maybe I'd imagined it, but the bell's sound was unmistakable. I waited a minute, but nothing happened, so I went back to the lounge. About 10 minutes later, the bell rang again. I rushed out, but once more, the lobby was empty. This time, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. I stepped outside, scanning the parking lot, but there was no sign of anyone. Everything was still and silent. I decided to stay at the front desk instead of going back. Maybe some drunk guest or a kid was playing a prank. After 15 quiet minutes, I relaxed again, leaned back, opened my laptop, and was about to laugh it off, when the bell rang a third time. My stomach dropped. Still, no one was there. My skin crawled. I checked behind the counter, the bathrooms, and even went outside again, but there was nothing. I walked the lot with my phone flashlight, still nothing. I came back in and sat directly behind the desk. If someone was messing with me, I was going to catch them. I dimmed the lights and sat there listening. The clock ticked loudly, the fridge hummed, the whole building creaked as it settled. 15 minutes passed, then 20. My eyes grew heavy, and I started to think maybe I'd been imagining it. Then the bell rang again, and this time, I saw it. A pale hand rose slowly from beneath the counter, reached over the desk, and pressed the bell. I jumped up so fast the chair nearly flipped, and I ran down the hall to the back office, slamming the door and locking it. My chest was pounding. My brain couldn't process what I'd just seen. How could someone even fit under there? It's a tight space, but just big enough for someone to crouch. That meant they'd been hiding there, right under me. I forced myself to check the security monitors. For cameras, one on the lobby, one on the hallway, and two outside. On the lobby feed, my chair was tipped over, and the counter looked empty. Then movement, a head slowly poked out from behind the desk. I couldn't make out details, just the shape and the glint of eyes staring straight into the camera. My stomach dropped. I called 911, whispering that someone had broken in. The dispatcher told me to stay put, officers were on their way. On the screen, the head disappeared. Then the figure crawled out from under the desk on hands and knees. He stood up, tall, wearing a hoodie pulled tight around his face, shoulders hunched. He started walking around the lobby like he was searching for something, then turned toward the hallway leading to the back office. I pressed my back against the door just as the knob rattled, slowly, once, then silence. I couldn't move. My throat was dry, my breathing shallow. After what felt like forever, I heard slow footsteps fade away. I rushed to the monitor again. The man was pacing the lobby, sometimes standing in front of the glass doors just staring out, like he was waiting. Then he moved to the brochure rack and started flipping through the papers, almost mockingly calm. Minutes dragged by until flashing red and blue lights filled the parking lot. 2 police cars pulled in. The man must have seen them, because he suddenly bolted out of frame. A second later, I heard the front doors open. The cops searched the entire building but found nothing, just a large rock by the entrance, likely used to keep the door open. Whoever he was gone. They searched the lot and nearby road but never found him. The officer said he must have slipped out right before they arrived. I keep replaying it, the slow, deliberate way that hand reached up and pressed the bell, like it was nothing. Now, every time that bell rings at night, I freeze. I don't think I'll ever look at that front desk the same way again.